Race has determined too much, and it has determined that this country is on a downward spiral because we have stopped being a merit-based society and become an idiot society based on numbers and quotas because of people like you who promote lies to intellectually fragile communities.
Where people live determines what kind of education, determines how they're treated in the criminal justice system.
No, people's behavior is what determines how they're treated by the criminal justice system. There's a picture that goes around the web. There is a black criminal who is standing in court, and next to him is a black lawyer and a black police officer. Now, we won't get into the fact that blacks, no matter what economic strata they are in, still are the number one criminal, regardless of the crime. But those three men represent three different strata, three different choices that a black man could have taken in this nation. One became a law enforcement officer, one became a doctor of jurisprudence, finger brackets, and the other became a criminal. Now, I know there's a little joke in there, but we'll let that one slide this time. Three black men, three paths. Nothing is set in stone.
And we've got to do several things at the same time. We have to restore trust between communities and the police.
Well, let's start by this. Let's start restoring sanity between communities and themselves. Let's force communities to accept the truth about how they are behaving and how other communities are behaving. How many people were shot in Greenwich, Connecticut this week by police? Crickets. Crickets. How many people were shot in Detroit or Chicago or Philadelphia or South Central LA or New York City by police? What's the difference? I don't think it's a zip code.
We have to work to make sure that our police are using the best training, the best techniques.
The American police are not angel, but these individuals are forced to deal daily with the very worst humanity has to offer. The very worst. This scourge of human behavior is not isolated to a single racial demographic. These police officers are unfortunate to be witness to dead white babies, dead black babies, dead men, dead women, dead mothers, dead fathers, dead children, killed brutally by family members, by strangers, through random accidents, through acts of insanity and depravity. And they see every bit of the spectrum. These very same men and women who wear these uniforms will not only usher people to their final reward, at the same time, or within hours, or within minutes of putting a chalk outline around someone who is unfortunate, they are delivering a new life into the world because a woman could not get to the hospital in time, and she is giving birth into a police officer's arms. These stressors of real life, the very lowest and the acme of everything, the police officer engages in every day while you sit cozy and comfortable on your fat, cushy ass, protected by men, very much like police officers, men who you disrespect continuously. Those men not only come out of their academies with the best training available to them, they, because of their human experience, become the most trained and the most human amongst us. And therefore their reactions, whether they are brutal, whether they are compassionate, whether they are indifferent, are the ultimate expressions of humanity's emotional spectrum. While you blather off college campus bullshit from your high white ivory tower, you are mocked by those who are forced to walk in streets filled with blood and death and life and everything that occurs in between. You, lady, in your $3,000 fucking pantsuit, do not get to judge any law enforcement officer in this nation or on this planet. You, lady, do not have the moral integrity to judge these men whether they are the best we have to offer or the very worst we have to offer. They are better than you by their mere act of putting on a badge and a uniform and becoming the shield between humanity and itself. You fucking clown.
The case in a lot of our neighborhoods.
Who's to blame?
I have, ever
You
since
and
the
your media
first day of
cronies.
my campaign, called for criminal justice reform. I've laid out.
Criminal justice reform? We don't need criminal justice reform. We need judicial reform. We need to remove biased judges like yourself who believe in nonsense and extend privileges to criminals, recidivists, psychopaths, sociopaths, and social degenerates by allowing them to continuously victimize the world around them. We don't need criminal justice reform. We need judicial reform. Hold judges accountable for their actions. A judge releases someone who goes out and kills someone weeks later. That judge is responsible, and that judge needs to be sued and prosecuted if need be, and needs to sit his ass in jail the same way you would put a cop in jail if you decided he used excessive force in protecting his own life. So screw you.
And we've got to get guns out of the hands of people who should not have them. The gun epidemic is the leading cause of death of young African American men, more than the next 9 causes put together.
Well, who do you blame? Who's shooting them? White boys from Greenwich? White boys from Michigan? White boys from the lake? Who? Rebel white boys in pointy white robes? No. 90% of those blacks are murdered by other blacks with guns. This is a team behavior. This is a community behavior. This is a social expression by a single group. This is the same level of violence in the American black as demonstrated in sub-Saharan Africans. It has nothing to do with anything else other than a community's behavior.
We have to do 2 things, as I said. We have to restore trust. We have to work with the police. We have to make sure they respect the communities and the communities respect them. And we have to tackle the plague of gun violence, which is a big contributor to a lot of the problems.
Well, here's something. Remember 20 plus years ago, your vice presidential first lady, your little second lady there, Tipper Gore? Remember how Tipper Gore wanted to censor rock and roll music in video games? Why don't you and Tipper create a little program to censor rap music and Black Thug movies? Huh? How about you censor World Star video where, blacks are encouraged to commit acts of violence, video record them, and post them on the web? Why don't you do something about that? Why don't you address that? Could you ever? Have you ever even heard of World Star? Probably not, because you're too busy creating world wars.
Stop and frisk was ruled unconstitutional in New York because it largely singled out black and Hispanic young men.
Actually, it was ruled unconstitutional in New York by those very same judges who we know are unaccountable to the law, and because blacks and Latinos are those who are carrying the weapons. Hello? What are you not understanding, Lester? What dishonest nonsense are you putting forward? Are you incapable of acknowledging reality? Probably. Is that what it is? Is it the ivory tower has gotten to you too? I think so. You're a liar. You're a fraud.
The argument is that it's a form of racial profiling.
It's not a form of racial profiling. It's a form of criminal profiling. When stop and frisk is engaged properly, what happens? Drugs and weapons are removed from the streets. Criminals are removed from the streets. If you don't think a cop knows who's packing heat, who's got dope, who's a dope dealer, who's a weapons smuggler, you're a fucking fool. You're a fucking clown who watches too many goddamn TV shows and too many goddamn Hollywood films, and you think that everyone is a skinhead and a white supremacist when, we know that they're fictional creations as well.
It's really unfortunate that he paints such a dire, negative picture of black communities in our country.
Well, where are the murders occurring? Greenwich? Are they occurring in Chappaqua? Are they occurring in North Hollywood? Cite the murders that are occurring in the wealthy white communities and cite the murders that are occurring in the black communities. If 85% of gun crimes are committed by a single demographic, black males 15 years of age to 35 years of age, where are the crimes being committed? 85% of them are going to be in black communities.
You know, the vibrancy of the black church, the black businesses that employ so many people, the opportunities that so many families are working to provide for their kids. There's a lot.
You say families, black families. You do understand, Secretary Clinton, that 70% of black families don't have a dad at home. You do understand that. You know, the white communities are approaching as they don't have dads at home either. You know, that's because of the social policies that you have created. You didn't notice that, though. Right. So you talk about nonsense, fluff and puff while the gunshots are going off. And the same people who are too fragile to be accountable for their own actions or their own children's actions or what they have instilled in their communities, well, they'll go along with your bullshit. But those of us who think for ourselves, we're going to mock you all.
There are the right ways of doing it, and then there are ways that are ineffective. Stop and frisk was found to be unconstitutional, and in part because it was ineffective. It did not do what it needed to do.
Again, Hillary, you're perpetuating another lie. New York City's stop and frisk provides the prime evidence that everything you're saying is false. Giuliani's stop and frisk, the murder rates in New York City went down from over 2,000 a year to less than 700 in a year. So what you're talking about is nonsense. You're lying. You're a typical Democrat, hypocrite liar.
And in fact, violent crime is 1/2 of what it was in 1991.
Yes, violent crime overall as a national statistic is down. Gun crimes as a national statistic is down. But violence and criminality in the black community has been unchanged for the last 50 years, just like the violence that the blacks levy upon all other communities has been unchanged, if not increased, in the last 50 years. Remember, there are 640 black on white racial attacks every day. There are up to 100 black on white rapes every day. Conversely, 16 white on black attacks and absolutely 0 for the last 20 years white on black rapes. So again, your fluff and puff means nonsense when faced by fact.
On anyone who's on the terrorist watch list from being able to buy a gun in our country. If you're too dangerous to fly, you are too dangerous to buy a gun.
But you're not too dangerous to be employed by the Obama administration. You know, the very same Obama administration whose policies you are talking about erasing? Oh, yeah, I heard that. Are you that much of an idiot? You must be that much of an idiot. You're reading. Why are you reading your notes, honey? Why do you have notes while you're standing at the terminal? Who gave you those notes?
Things we can do, and we ought to do it in a bipartisan way.
Secretary Clinton, last week you said we've got to do everything possible to improve policing, to go right at implicit bias. Do you believe that police are implicitly biased against black people?
I believe that the media is implicitly biased against the police. I believe that the media is implicitly biased against white people. I believe that you are implicitly biased against blacks and whites and police. I believe that you are implicitly biased, Lester, against anyone who might ruin your little fantasy of false beliefs. Yeah, that's what I think.
They admit it's an issue. They've got a lot of concern. Mental health is one of the biggest concerns because now police are having to...
Mental health? Lady, you display some of the worst mental health I've ever seen, as do your Democrat cronies who are incapable of understanding reality. So talking about mental health is quite an irony there.
And you know what else I prepared for?
Jail.
I prepared to be president.
No, be prepared to wear an orange jumpsuit.
For 5 years, you perpetuated a false claim that the nation's first black president was not a natural-born citizen. You questioned his legitimacy.
Barack has led by example. When we took our trip to Africa and visited his home country in Kenya, Kenya.
Lester, you ask why there are questions about the place of Barack Obama's birth. Well, it's probably because his wife came right out and said, you heard it, that Barack Obama was born in Kenya.
His home country in Kenya.
I mean, I've never referred to Ireland as my home country. I've never referred to Poland or Germany as my home country. That's where my ancestors are from. I'm not from there. My home country is America. My home state is New York. If Barack Obama were born in Hawaii, as has been alleged, it also has been alleged he's been born at both hospitals, and then it's been alleged that he hasn't been born at either hospital. If he were born in Hawaii, Wouldn't Michelle Obama, a former lawyer herself, know that his home country were the United